запис. От воно, здається, запустилось. Окей, тоді я запускаю людей. Перших там 2-3 хвилини є такий small talk, якісь інструкції, от, щоб люди підключилися, і потім вже передам. Okay, now we can switch to English. It's very important to have the right language in your head before you speak. So yeah, let's start. All right, so I see people are joining. We're going live now. Welcome everyone to our this time online event again. We in our Chamber of Commerce are trying different formats for these meetings, but we see that people prefer to still meet online. Maybe that's important in these conditions that we have. But we experiment. We would like to also have some hybrid meetings. We invite people to the office. Unfortunately, everyone, or maybe fortunately, everyone wanted to meet online, but welcome. My name is Anastasia Antonik. I'm going to lead this conversation today. If you have any questions, please send us them in the chat box. We also have Q&A session. You find all the needed tools and instruments in the bottom of your screen. I represent the Norwegian Ukrainian Chamber of Commerce. And I would like this meeting to be more interactive today. So our audience, dear public, if you would like to present yourself, please send us a few words in the chat box, telling your name, what you're doing, where you're sitting. It would be nice to find out who we have with us today. If there are any issues, technical issues, the sound disappeared, the presentation isn't working, also please let me know. I'll try to do my best to support and help each of you. I would like to also say thank you to the Ukrainian-Scandinavian Center. Some of you have never heard probably about the center. They're hosting us today and initiated this meeting and this topic. It's an educational center that aims to promote different Scandinavian values in Ukraine. It's educational center, so you can either learn any Scandinavian or Nordic language, which is Norwegian, Swedish, Finnish, Danish in Ukraine. They have 2 offices, online, offline courses, different activities, different events, and they are aiming to create this global or this big Scandinavian community in Ukraine. So please check out their website, and thank you very much for hosting us again. I know that some representatives are watching us and are with us today among the public. Thank you very much. Also, I have with us today very competent speakers from the north, from Buda. It's Olga Yermolenko and Anatoly Burmistrov. Thank you for joining us today. How is north? Is it cold? I've heard that it's very dark.
Well, now we have twilights, so we don't have sun anymore, but it's not that cold. It could be much colder and windier than it is now, but well, we survive. Yes, so it's so far so good.
Do you see northern lights? Is it
sometimes, yes, sometimes we do, but you know, in order to have the northern light, you have to have a very good weather without wind and rain, and this is very rare in the north.
Yeah, I remember when I visited Buda and saw the northern light, I was so excited and like looking at it, pointing, and people were just walking around like not paying attention to that, and that was very weird to me. I guess that's what you do when you get used to seeing it every day. Thank you for joining us today. I think that this online formats help us to widen our geography a little bit, include people that we usually cannot or is hard to include in offline events, but we are using this opportunity. Thank you for being with us. We have also Yuri Repeta, who represents our member of our chamber, First Chair Legal, a very active company that has a lot of initiatives and has been looking into different issues when it comes to cooperation between Norway and Ukraine. Yuri, thank you for being with us.
Thank you for the invitation.
Are you in Lviv currently?
Yes, correct.
Are you working from office or are you having a home office?
Yes, I'm working from office, so I'm started to leave home in order to be more socialized with compliance to COVID-19.
All right. How is Lviv? Is it getting ready for Christmas holidays?
To tell the truth, the situation is unclear due to COVID-19 situation. So we will see. We will see. As for now, not as much.
I see. Well, I always have this like Christmas feeling when I visit Lviv in winter because of the Christmas market. So I hope that this year people will experience that no matter what, no matter quarantines and COVID. I think that we can start with the topic that we prepared for today, and the topic would be good corporate governance. Can you see my presentation? Yeah, it's on. Yes, all right. I see that people are nodding. That means that we are on. Yes, good corporate governance, and why we actually start talking about this. I think that issue comes up, or something connected to corporate governance comes up in every meeting lately that I've been taking through the Chamber of Commerce. Therefore, I think that even though it has been the good corporate governance has been an element in every activity we have, I think it's still important to raise this issue separately, to talk about this topic, to help the Ukrainian companies and businesses to integrate it in their activities, because it can create value. And what value it can create, what are the frameworks exist in nowadays, we are going to look into today. Before we do that, I saw some new names in the audience, so I think that I'll say a few words about our Chamber of Commerce and what we work with, and also what topics we cover. First of all, we are a non-profit, non-political membership organization. We are actively working for increased business cooperation and trade between Norway and Ukraine. We are Oslo-based organization, so we have project managers in Norway. We also have representative in Ukraine. As I mentioned, we have members. We're a membership organization. It's around 130 from both Norway and Ukraine, and we are trying to work with them. We are trying to help them to discover opportunities that lie in the business cooperation between Norway and Ukraine. We would like to influence the economic development in Ukraine positively. Our activities are aimed for that, but I think that it's not possible to do without talking about good corporate governance. And that's what we're going to do today. This is the slide that a lot of you have seen before. It sums up everything we do, but there is also some news in our strategy. We are now working, we're bringing business together for a sustainable future. Sustainability, it's also the topic that comes up probably in every networking event or B2B meetings, especially from the Norwegian side. Any meeting I have within my project, which is manufacturing, comes up from how sustainable is the production in Ukraine. The Norwegian consumer is thinking about that. They want to see the transparency in the supply chain. They want to know that the goods that are produced in Ukraine are produced from the sustainable materials. And this is a very important topic that we also take into consideration when we plan our activities. We support sustainable development goals, and the most relevant for us is probably the goal number 8, which goes for decent work and economic growth. And it aims to promote inclusive and sustainable economic growth, achieve higher level of economic productivity, as well as promote development-oriented policies. As you can see here, we work within different sectors or within different projects. It's IT, professional services, energy infrastructure, seafood, agriculture, manufacturing, which has been my area of activity, and tourism. We help also to organize different higher events, or where we have high political visits, either from Norway to Ukraine or vice versa. We help and we bring business together also there to help our network to discover opportunities. And the last but not least is our Young Entrepreneurs Program, where we gather young people, relatively young people from both Norway and Ukraine, who work together, develop some business ideas, and we provide all the instruments and connections that they need to implement those ideas. And of course, good corporate governance and business development has been the umbrella for all of our activities and projects. And this is what we integrate and think about every time we are planning something, and we are going to look more into that in 2021 with the help of our members, of course, and competent parties. That's a little bit about NUC. I would also like to tell you that since we integrate the topic of governance, or good governance, good corporate governance into our activities, I think it's important to have a common understanding of what governance and corporate governance and good corporate governance is, because to my experience, something that is good in Ukraine could be not good enough in Norway, or vice versa. Therefore, I think that by having the competent guest today, we're going to look more into this issue and talk about what it is, what are the frameworks, and how to implement them. When we talk about governance in NUC, we talk about the process of decision making and process by which the decisions are implemented or not implemented. And governance is, of course, you can find it on different levels. Corporate governance is something that is most relevant for us. In Norway, there is a Norwegian code of corporate governance, and which was created for listed companies, and it helps them to practice this corporate governance. You can find it online. It covers about 15 issues, different issues, but it's also worth mentioning that not even listed companies follow that. This, if you show that you're following this code, you strengthen the confidence in your company, you create the value, and you show that you take the interest of shareholders, employees, and other stakeholders into account when you work. And I think it's very important, or the Norwegian companies are taking it seriously, because it shows that they maintain the high standards in the area of corporate governance. There is a board that works for promoting this code in Norway and abroad, and I think it's a good starting point for us to develop our activities, and to, for example, when we would like to bring these issues within the Ukrainian business, it's a very nice framework to use. I have also a few slides why it is important to talk about corporate governance and good corporate governance, how to improve your governance, good corporate governance, but I think I'll go to that in the end of our event. And I think that I can give the floor to our guests. We'll start with the guest from the north, Olga and Anatoly. I know that you've been working with these issues also. You've been working with COSO Framework. I don't have that much experience with that. Therefore, I think it will be interesting to hear what this COSO Framework is and how to work with that. Thank you very much for joining. The floor is yours. If there is any questions from the public, please let us know in the chat box. I'll make sure that our speakers will get it, and we'll try to discuss and answer it.
Thank you very much for a nice introduction. I hope you can see me and hear me, and see the slides. And my name is Anatoly Burmistrov. I'm originally Russian, now Norwegian. And I'm a professor at Norwegian University Business School. And together with my colleague, Olga, we are going to give you a very short presentation on the topics of how to organize the work regarding good corporate governance. It's not necessarily just in Ukraine, but actually it's the problem all around the world. So I don't think we should say that Ukraine has something unique. Of course, there are maybe a general culture understanding a little bit different compared to the rest of the world, but I think there are global issues here. And just want to say that I'm also teaching this same subject in European Court of Auditors. So I think that even European Court of Auditors, the institution which audit the European Union, ask about such competence improvement courses, just shows that there is kind of the need to introduce these type of topics in curriculum and universities and on the bachelor master level, but also for the practitioners. So I think we shouldn't be afraid of being in Ukraine and saying that, oh, we are so corrupt. I think this is the global issue. Next slide, please, Olga. So, and just to support this, I'll just demonstrate you the 5 basic scandals, or let's say what is everything good coming in from United States because they have so much good institutions when it comes to financial regulation. And you can see that some of this 1997 Foreign Corrupt Practices Act was developed in order to combat corruption of American citizens outside United States. In 1985, there were before that there was a number of scandals, number of frauds, number of problems. Then the companies went bankrupt because they have been actually doing something illegal. And then there was several national committees established in order to address the problem of good corporate governance and especially the role of internal controls. Enron scandal, when the company was doing everything wrong in order to cheat stakeholders and led to so-called Sarbanes-Oxley Act, where the accounting and auditors have been under scrutiny, and some suggestions have been made in order to improve this. But you see, this is there's recent scandals showing that the world is not actually improving so much. There are some improvements, but still there are problems, like the Panama Papers, when they talk about leakages from, I think, from one of the companies, consultant or legal advisor, Monsac Francesca, when they reported illegal operations, tax evasions, fraud, on the tremendous scale, especially that this was the subject of the most prosperous people, public officials and wealthy individuals who were avoiding taxation and have been involved in illegal operations. And the final, this year, we have been FinCEN files. It's actually a special agency in the United States called Financial Crimes Enforcement Network, which received a message from a bank about suspicious transactions going on in the banks, and it was leaked out and they reported by the International Consortium of Investigative Journalists. So they reported that actually there are a lot of money laundering going on through the biggest banks in the world. And so what they have learned from this, and I think you see the picture, the lessons learned from Enron don't feed the accountants. So everybody pointing out on my profession, because I forgot to tell you that my basic field is accounting, auditing, and internal control and management control. So, and everybody's saying that you accountants don't do the good work. And I say, this is a bullshit, sorry for language. This is something to do with managers. And I think in 1995, one of the outcome of this National Commission of Fraudulent Financial Reporting was exactly that accountants, they gathered together and said, what can we do in order to have control of this problem? Internal control, good corporate governance. And what they find out, very simple, that accountants, they want the order, they want to have everything under control. The problem is managers. Managers are not involved. Managers don't understand the importance of internal control, good corporate governance. They don't see their role in this, and that's why it's kind of moving not into the right direction. Olga, next slide, please. That's why the COSO framework was established, and the first COSO framework in 1992, actually it was a pyramid which was transformed to this cube, and this is very good because it's visualized something easy to understand. And when you talk about COSO framework, many people ask what COSO stands for, and it's nothing mysterious, but this is actually stands for a committee of sponsoring organization. This is nothing to do, it's very cumbersome name, but it was a committee consisting of accounting, major accounting organization in the United States, which gathered together and said, we need to do something. So they developed this COSO framework. You can see over the years, they have been publishing a lot of reports or frameworks, recommendations, like 1992 first framework, 2004 COSO enterprise risk management framework. Then there was a revision in 2013 when it comes to internal control, COSO framework, and recently it was published new enterprise risk management framework, where they looking how to integrate company strategy and performance and enterprise risk management system. So there is no actually need to innovate in Ukraine, because I think I don't say I would like to market this framework, but there are frameworks which are easy to use and meaningful to use. And just to tell you about the COSO framework 2013, you can see that this is something to do with the top of the cube, and they say organizations, they have several objectives, and one of them it's efficient operations. So organizations need to ensure that they earn money and that they actually have the efficient processes in order to do so. But then they say this is also reporting objectives. You need to comply with accounting regulation. You need to comply with some other reporting regulations, like to the tax authorities, to the legal agency. Then we find the compliance, meaning that you need to comply to other types of regulation. For instance, stakeholder regulations, stakeholder expectations, rightly to say, saying that you need to not to pollute, you need to have compliance with social aspects of bottom line. So there are a lot of compliance issues coming in. And then you have the right-hand side saying that you need to implement different elements in the entity level, division, operational unit, so that all organization is involved. And the front side of the cube, which says that in order to build a good internal control system for corporate governance, you need, first of all, have a control environment, meaning that you need to have a code of conduct. You need to have understanding of all parts of organization, especially the board of directors, especially the managers, about their roles in order to ensure good corporate governance and internal control. Then second element is a risk assessment, saying that if you have this control environment, if you have in place rules, procedures, regulation, then it's easy to assess the risks for the corruption, the risks for fraud, risk for not achieving operational objectives. And then it's easy to, based on this assessment, to develop control activities which will help you to mitigate those risks in terms of verification, different types of business assessments. So this is up, then it will be the system. But then it's important to register information and communicate it. There's a fourth model. And the fifth model is saying that, okay, if you have a good control system today, it doesn't mean that it will be good tomorrow. You need to always to evaluate how it's functioning and whether you need improvements. Next slide, please. So I think this is actually a very established framework, and I think we have been using it in Ukraine already in several projects, and we are not so much involved in, yet at least, in small business. We have been teaching in the young entrepreneurship, but not on this topic. But we, for instance, have been doing a report in 2015 about what municipalities and public sector officials are missing, and we find out that 55% of public officials were not actually ready for association agreement. And I think there are a lot of things coming out of it. The expectations that Ukraine will be good in anti-corruption and good corporate governance. These two projects which I read, this is retraining and professional adaptation of veterans coming from war. And in this project, we actually have established a system of internal control according to COSO Framework. We're monitoring it, and we're actually developing it in the right direction. And this is actually give an idea to develop a course on internal control based on COSO Framework with application to university sector. And you can ask why universities. Yeah, because we are a university, and we cooperate with other universities in our projects, and it was the idea to to start there, to find a natural partners, to actually to try to see what is problematic, what is interesting. Next slide. So the first seminar was done in 2017. We had 30 participants from 13 universities. We had, I think, 3 or 4 day seminars where we actually provided theoretical underpinning of COSO Framework, but then organized group works so that universities in different teams, so the people from different universities would sit down and discuss the strategy, how they can address different types of COSO Framework. And what came out of it? Next slide, please. It's some kind of reflections. I think we see that internal control should be a tool of managers, not only accountants. And I already stressed this point. I see that there are some people disagree with me in the chat, and I will be really eager to hear your opinion. But I think culture matters. Yes, in Ukraine, we have sometimes of kind of recognition that some small bribes are okay. Gifts, we call it bribes, but gifts. But I think what is also interesting is if the company, if the organization requires something different type of code of conduct than you can do at home, it actually can change you. We have seen it in some places that actually people start to diverge, something are not allowed at the work, and then they started to think maybe I shouldn't do it at home as well. Many want to have a code of conduct, but I think the biggest problem, they lack knowledge, don't understand how to do it in systematic manner. Some people ask about how do you do it in Norway? And of course we can show it, but it will probably not be relevant for Ukraine. But I think what our experience from Ukrainian universities has taught us is that the exchange between universities is much more valuable because, let's say, the people discuss control environment, what kind of code of conduct do you have? So several universities, they have different aspects, and then they put it together, so suddenly they see that there is a synergy to gain, that actually some universities miss something, some other universities have some other opinions, they could integrate it and actually have. So I think there are a lot of experience already in Ukraine. And I think the biggest problem, I think, middle managers, they have these motivations, they want to develop and follow code of conduct, but the issue very often, what will happen on the top? Is the top of universities, rectors and directors committed to those type of code of conducts? And this is, I think, very often the problem. And I think this is also addressed in COSO Framework. They says, if the board of directors, if not managers are interested in that, nothing would happen. Olga, please. Take over.
I was just thinking maybe we have to give a little detail on the projects because maybe they don't understand, like the audience doesn't understand from where the universities come from. It was just, I will go back and show these two projects that Anatoly has mentioned. It's Norway-Ukraine professional adaptation integration into the state system. And many of you know that after the Ukrainian military officers and the former ATO participants, when they come back home or retire, they don't have any system in Ukraine to integrate them in normal life, in civilian life. And then we have this project, which we call Norway-Ukraine, where we help them to retrain and to get new profession or start new businesses. And it's a large-scale project that goes in many regions in Ukraine. Now we cover 18 regions, and we will, until 2022, we are going to cover all 24 regions, and therefore universities play important part here because they provide retraining together with the NGOs in the regions. And therefore there was a need to create an internal system, a control system that works for everyone. And therefore we have also started with this internal control and the COSO framework. And we were a bit ahead of time, as Anatoly says all the time, because the course, online course, was developed already in 2018 and published, and in 2019 we had the first groups of participants who took part in this. And just to say a few words about this course, its workload corresponds to 5 ACTS, so it's quite large course with a lot of assignments, and it's a self-study online course which is published on Canvas, very easy to access. And what is also interesting, it was a pilot project, so then we had evaluation of the course and received feedbacks from the participants, and now we know how to make it better. And we have already made some improvements, because originally it was just video material without subtitles, but during this year we have managed to create subtitles for all the videos so that you can switch to Ukrainian or English and to better digest the material. What's also interesting is that a team of different professionals from 4 universities under the coordination of Nord University designed the course. So it was like a course that was you know, pushed from here, but Chernivtsi University, you see the logo, Ternopil National Economic University and Kyiv National University, they were partners in this project. So that the auditing, accounting, financial management specialists who work in those universities, they also covered some parts of the course. And now I will tell you who was covering which one. Here we see the module 1, control environment, was covered by Chernivtsi University, and then module 2 was covered by us, Nord University, module 3, information and communication by Kyiv National University, and module 4, monitoring activities by Ternopil National Economic University. And when we were designing the course and thinking, okay, what's the internal control system is, we were thinking about a big boat or ship where you have a captain, and this could be the top manager and his subordinates, those who, you know, help to steer, and all these communication systems that are there. So that the course is covering different and the most important elements of the COSO framework. And what was interesting is that the course participants, they, in the beginning, they were quite skeptical. Okay, what's COSO, what it is? But then when we had the final presentations, they were sharing with us that, oh, okay, we have this, but we didn't call it this way. And we have this, and then we have a larger picture, and then we know what we are missing. And then when we know what to do, and everybody was saying that at least now in Ukraine, it's a big competition for students, so that universities, they really compete, they care about their reputation, and internal control is one of the you know, levers that can help them to strengthen their management and to, you know, to prevent corruption in a way, and to have better reputation in the educational services market. So the course in general focuses on why internal control is needed to ensure that organizational or project objectives are achieved, funds are used properly, irregularities are avoided, and risks are identified and handled, time to minimize the risks to the organization. So then we also use different tools to evaluate the performance of the participants, like multiple choice tests after each module. Also, they were working in groups on the obligatory assignments that were devoted to the, as to say, different elements of the internal control system. And then we had a final group presentation, and at that time it was possible to have it physical, so that we had the final seminar in Kyiv with all project participants. What is good that here in Norway, we always, there is a system for course evaluation. So each course is evaluated. So we did the same with our course. It helps us to understand where we can be better, but also to understand the strengths of the course which was offered. And it was very good for us, because the overall learning outcomes were rated as excellent by 86% of course participants, and we used the scale from 1 to 5, so that 86% of course participants, they gave us 5, and some gave 4, and with some comments like they needed more certification on the international and national level, because after the course they have received a joint certificate from 4 universities. But we started thinking, what can we do next to make it, you know, on the national and international level? So then it was also, we've heard that they want more face-to-face meetings and interaction, but in 2018 and 19, Zoom and all these tools were not that used, so we couldn't have, you know, this interaction. But now it's, after just a short period of time, this all is much more possible, so that we really can devote more time and efforts in this. And then using Ukrainian English subtitles, and we have managed that already. And motivation, you know, it was interesting to see how the people started feeling much more optimistic when they knew that you know, who performed the best, who have the best presentation, the best progress, then they would have internship in Norway. So it was also kind of part of the project, because they knew, okay, then we go from the Ukrainian university to Norway to learn more about how the internal control system works at other universities and cooperate with the colleagues and them. But in general, the course was evaluated as good, so that it was good structure and video material. It was produced here in our station, IT station, so that the quality is good. Interesting tasks and work groups. And what was also interesting is that it has high relevance and possibility to apply new knowledge in practice. So because the course participants have received so much information, so that they could, you know, offer their own solutions to their universities. And it was really interesting to hear for us that after the final presentation, these course participants, they made presentations for their managers, so the universities, rectors, deans, pro-rectors, and that they were heard, you know, and so that they also started doing something in direction of this. But these universities are good, and the universities we cooperate with here in Norway, they have good reputation. So that maybe for them it's not that difficult to convert to some systems. So that I see that we are running out of time, so I skip this slide and I just go to the conclusions in a way. And as Anatoly have mentioned, that internal control system, it can have different forms. And here we had a pilot and we tested how the COSO framework works in practice, whether it is useful. And it was really interesting that it is a suitable tool, and it's in general was evaluated as a good tool to improve management in Ukrainian universities. And it's also nice that people become aware of the possibilities it can provide, and it also gives new forms of cooperation and all these other spin-off effects of the course. So this was shortly about our experience in good governance and internal control. And I see that we have some questions in chat, so I don't know whether we have to listen to the next presentation and then to take the, so it's up to you, Anastasia. Yes, thank you.
I see that there was a comment to Anatoly. Anatoly has already answered in the chat box, so I think that we'll just go to the next speaker and go from the educational. I personally believe that if we would like to have some structural changes in the world of business, we should start from education, because that's where people get knowledge and they learn how to structure their work. And I'm very happy to hear that there are some programs that are working on that, that trying to improve the management and trying to help people to improve the internal control processes in the company. So we'll go further to more like practical questions and issues for the business, especially small and medium businesses in Ukraine. I know that you, Yuri, you looked into the reform, the good corporate governance corporate governance reform in Ukraine, and you try to come up with a list of some practical tips and to show that Ukrainian business can use it not only for structuring the proper international process and for looking for the international partners, but also use it as a competitive advantage. So you have, the floor is yours. If you have any, dear audience, questions to Yuri, please make sure that we get them in the chat box. We can't hear you. You're probably mute. Nice online ethics to mute if you're not speaking, but don't forget to unmute yourself.
Okay, thank you very much. So I'm on.
Yes.
I would like to introduce myself one more time, yes, and represent my company as well. My name is Yuri Repata. I am attorney at law at First Year Legal. We are the legal company which works with foreign investment support, as well as international trade and dispute resolution. We have heard about corporate governance, I would rather say as like top-bottom approach, yes, from the general perspectives and from the general importance of the situation. And I would like to make my presentation like to be more bottom-up, to be more like practical and work particular instruments of corporate governance can be used by small and medium enterprises, because the general scope of corporate governance is really broad. So it really covers almost all internal like governance of the company. Yes, and I would not stop on first basic slides regarding general information about corporate governance, but I have really enjoyed one of the definitions, is that corporate governance is the art of directing and controlling the organization by balancing the needs of various stakeholders. So that's really reflects the general essence of corporate governance. However, I would not stop on these things, because the colleagues already covered this very good. The organizations which are involved into corporate governance regulation in the world, and I would rather say recommendation, because that's like more soft law instrument than the regulation itself. But for example, International Finance Corporation was engaged in developing of the latest corporate governance principles regulation in Ukraine as well. So, and all the mentioned organizations are actively involved in these processes. About good corporate governance, the colleagues has also mentioned, but I would like to share my feeling that in general, corporate governance is more internal thing, and good corporate governance differs from general with the fact that as it is said here, that it provides regulators, shareholders, as well as general public with precise and accurate information about financial operation and other aspects of the company. So it makes the corporate governance more public, not regarding the general big corporations and joint stock companies, but regarding the small companies as well. The peculiarities and elements of good corporate governance were already covered, so I can go forward with regulation in Ukraine and the reform overview. To keep it short, actually, the issue is really covering all the like newspapers instantly. However, it's more regarding the issues of state-owned companies, because Ukraine has, in cooperation with our external creditors, a lot of obligations regarding reforming of our state-owned companies and regarding corporate governance, first of all. And this issue is like constantly covered by newspapers and mass media, as I have said, because there are constantly some peculiarities regarding the composition of supervisory board, because supervisory boards of such companies shall be composed with the foreign independent directors, and this is really like itchy topic, and because of that it's really like popular and on desk. However, in general, regarding small and medium enterprises, because I'm sure that we are here are not talking about state-owned companies as much, I would like to say that the reform and the regulation as well has covered like two main laws: the law on joint stock companies and the law on limited liability companies and additional liability companies. Lots of new and interesting stuff was introduced. I will stop on these matters on the next slide. And moreover, like the importance of this issue is that is like stressed on with the fact that the new recommendation regarding corporate governance principles was introduced this year, and at the beginning of this year, like just before the beginning of coronavirus crisis, with the decision of our National Commission on Securities and Stock Market. So this is, as well as I have said, the soft law instruments. That's the recommendation, not obligatory issues. However, lots of joint stock companies draft their own principles on the basis of such recommendations. Okay, what about the instruments which can be used, corporate governance instruments introduced by the reform, which can be used by ordinary business? So as you have probably understood, the main peculiarity of the basics of the corporate governance lies in the iterations between like authorities of the particular company, yes, between the director, between the supervisory board, if it is introduced, between the shareholders, and how these matters are dealt with. That's the essence of the corporate governance. So the new, as a general fact, such things are regulated in Ukraine with the charter. However, the charter is not this flexible instrument, and like already for 2 years, the new instrument like exists and is regulated in Ukraine, such as shareholders agreement. That's like more flexible instrument which can regulate the relations between the shareholders in the company. For example, determination of some future obligations in particular, yes, because you cannot regulate it in the charter or articles of association, because that's the general instrument which regulates the activity of the company. However, in the shareholders agreement, you can regulate lots of flexible and things. For example, when the company has like two shareholders with the shares of with the equal shares, yes, the deadlock situation is possible. And in this case, the deadlock is the situation when the shareholders cannot reach the agreement and the operation of the company is blocked. That's why the parties can reach on different like ways and mechanisms to settle this situation. For example, like Dutch auctions, Texas shootouts, and other interesting stuff. That's really engaging and interesting. We have already been engaged in drafting and enforcing few shareholders agreements, and that's really interesting on how the parties agree on this situation, projecting future possible difficulties in their relations. Also, lots of things were introduced regarding the determining of the market value of shares. For example, such things that decision-making via poll was introduced, as well as such mechanisms as squeeze out and sell out. That's the cases when the minority shareholders, the shares of minority shareholders can be either forced buy it out or forced sold out by the minority shareholders themselves. So the instruments is really progressive and interesting. The first court practice starts to appear, which for sure makes the enforcement and implementation of such instruments even better and better. Okay, regarding the corporate governance checklists for the Ukrainian small and medium businesses, I would like to start here with a short list of questions, and you can ask your questions regarding this matter and provide more details or inquiries, and we can work with them within the presentation. So the first thing which is important to ask for the owner or for the shareholder of small and medium enterprises is the decision-making process clear and well established. So whether everything is established with the charter, whether no problems and deregulations take place, and whether it is possible to control it, which is really important. The control over, for example, the activity of of director, of CEO, can be introduced with the supervisory board. This is regarding the limited liability companies. Regarding the joint stock companies, there are some particular established obligations, but according to the fact that we are talking about small and medium enterprises, I think that we can focus more on LLCs because it's more common for them. Another issue is, are there checks and balances regarding conflict of interest introduced? And this is really important, and new legislation indeed introduced new obligations and a new liability for the conflict of interest situation breach. For example, which is not commonly known by owners of LLCs, the management of the management of LLCs, yes, the executives shall submit the list of affiliates to the supervisory board within a particular period from the start of their office, in order and constantly update this list of affiliates in order shareholders can check and evaluate the situation and project the situation to every particular transaction or hard situation in the company. Are any adequate accounting and auditing system in place, both internal and external? That's also a very important part of the corporate governance, as well as monitoring systems, as was introduced in the next question. This reflects with the general availability of established processes within the company, documented processes in the respective policies or regulations. And the last question, which is really important, are you able to report and prove the compliance with the mentioned above to the, for example, regulator or a third party, your counterparty, etc. For example, and why the good governance is important competitive advantage is that it is basically a prerequisite for cooperation with big players. If small and medium enterprises want to cooperate with big companies, for sure you have to pass with through compliance check, and not all the companies are able to show their proper decision-making system, their proper reflection of their agreements in internal documents of the company, and to show the results of audit or the proofs of proper financial status of the company, etc. So that's the availability of proper good governance system is not only the basics of good operation of the company, yes, of proper regulated system, of availability to control the management of the company, and to avoid as well conflict of interests between the shareholders as well, so-called principal conflict of interests. But this is the prerequisite of cooperation with big companies, as well as this is the marketing of good corporate governance is good for goodwill improvement of the company, because big joint stock companies have to have public reports, and have to show their compliance with all the obligations regarding corporate governance, but this opportunity is frequently not used by small and medium enterprises, but that's the threshold of their cooperation with foreign businesses, with big corporations, etc. And such a marketing can be a good additional value to the goodwill of the company. So whether there are any questions regarding this matter, Anastasia, because I'm
yeah, no questions from my side, but I think that I would just like to conclude a little bit. I'm actually very happy that the topic of corporate governance and becoming good or having good corporate governance is covered both from the educational point of view and from the legislation. Even though it's soft law, it's not, it's just advices and some instructions how to improve your corporate governance. I think it's also very important for us in the Chamber of Commerce, because we're not lawyers, we're not academics, we work directly between the companies, between the two countries. And this issue always comes up on a very practical level. Ukrainians, they ask how can we use this tool for improving our services and becoming a good international partner? Norwegians are asking, do you have all the mechanisms and regulations, internal control in place so that we can rely on you as a good international partner? That's why we want to work with this topic a little bit more and look into that in 2021. I think that for us, improving when Ukrainian companies are improving their corporate governance, it means that they are showing that their business approach is European. More and more European countries, they have code of conduct, as was mentioned before, in place. If Ukrainian companies have it, they show their willingness to comply with the standards and values of Europe, and especially in the Nordic region, it's very important. Also, this can become a great communication tool, as it was said before. If there is a report and all the transparency of this mechanism are published online, for example, and available for readers, it can be used as a great communication tool, also not only for communicating with your current customers or partners, but also for getting new cooperations and new partners in the future. It also shows your reliability, that you can be a reliable partner, you take it seriously, and that you think about that. You also are willing to show that everything is transparent and how your company is working, and that what interests, who has what interest in your company. That's important, and of course it makes it easier to create this platform for communication when we know that these are the companies we can rely on and recommend to the Norwegian partners. I think that's a few points, what's important and how you can show that your corporate governance is in place. You have to be transparent when you do business. That's like must have principle. You have to have zero tolerance towards corruption on both personal level and on the work in the workplace. You have to take social responsibility seriously. I think that's the issue that I covered before, that every time I arrange B2B meetings, I facilitate the direct contact, this issue comes up. Is the production sustainable? Is your business model sustainable? What principles of sustainability you are following? Because when the customers come to me, they will demand the transparency, and I should know that what my partners are working with. And of course, it's also very important to have good references. If you are looking for new international partners, you have your mechanism in place, you communicated that everything is good. You should also have good references who would say that we've already worked with this company, we can recommend they are having everything in place. And this is where our Chamber of Commerce comes in, to be a good reference, to experience the cooperation and create a platform for communication. We're running out of time. I see that Anatoly has left a comment in the chat box, PhD thesis on some of the topic. Could you give a comment on that, Anatoly? Tell a little bit more.
First of all, I would like to say thank you for this fantastic seminar. And of course, you are free to make contact with me or Olga if you're interested more in academic work. And this is a thesis which published on one multinational corporation, struggling exactly because Norwegians want to have everything transparent, everything under control, and how to operate in a country like India or Pakistan or Myanmar, where you have this child labor, where you have this problem, and how much influence you can actually have over the country. So I think Ukraine has a very interesting potential in this. If the Ukrainian companies would be ahead of other countries in the world in terms of the transparency, good corporate governance, this is a fantastic news, because this will be just only increasing. So you shouldn't kind of try to catch up with the Western companies, Norwegian companies. You should actually aim more. You should be ahead of them. And if you manage to do that, you will position yourself on the market as the fantastic and sustainable companies. But there is also you cannot be half sustainable as you cannot be half pregnant. So you need, if you committed, then you should go all the way, because otherwise somebody will find out that this is just talk. There are no actions, and then of course you will be punished by the markets, by financial markets, by customers. So if you go for it 100%, if you don't go for it, it's okay. But then then you're probably not in the future.
Yeah, I think that it's also a matter of reputation. If you want to position yourself on the market, that you are a company with good reputation, and you don't go in 100%, I think it's very dangerous for destroying the reputation.
And I think we need to learn from the history, because if you look at the Enron scandal, which made a global regulation change, why Enron has gone down, and it took with it Arthur Andersen, one of the global auditing firm, globally distributed. It just disappeared together with the company. It just illustrates, if you don't do things in the right way, it might be a consequence also for others around you. So everything is dependent.
Yeah, thank you very much. Would it be possible to collect the presentation and send out to all the registered participants? I'll follow up the audience. I'll send out the presentations with the contact information to the speakers. So if you have any questions after this event, feel free to take contact and follow up. If you
the closing one.
Yeah.
I would also like to say that for sure the presentations will be sent. Maybe we will also add something to it for make it more like reflecting the essence of the talk. But I also would like to suggest for the participants, for the audience, for example, the possibility of private talk regarding the analyzing and assessing their corporate governance, yes, which is for example for free for this case, yes, we will not like charge for it, and in order not to be afraid of greedy lawyers. So if anyone is interested in preliminary assessment of corporate governance and whether it is ready for international cooperation or something like that, so we will be happy to.
Yeah, I will. Thank you very much, Yuri. I will also follow up on or use this opportunity to promote a little bit our activities. We are planning our activities for 2021, and there will be a lot of like segment-based activities, both online and offline, especially within my project for manufacturing. So if you work with any of the sectors, which is like building or producing something, make sure to check our calendar. We're updating the activities, and you will surely find something relevant to your sector in industry. Take contact with me if you are looking for some Norwegian partners, or you would like to expand your business to a Scandinavian market. We can look into that and see what we can do for you. Yes, all right. I'm sure that's not the last time we meet and talk about the good corporate governance and how to make your corporate governance good. I'm sure there will be more events with this topic. I would like to say thank you for being with us today, for your time, and for sharing your knowledge and competence with us. I think that I will say goodbye, and I will say goodbye to our audience. Thank you for staying with us this hour, and have a nice weekend. Take care, wear masks, follow the guidelines, and we talk at the next event.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you very much.